What up, everyone? My name is Jędrek, and this is another episode of The State of Modern. Uh, Today I'm gonna talk almost exclusively, or yeah, more or less exclusively about Kaldheim. Uh, since I'm not playing any challenges this weekend due to real life stuff I'm doing, I'm going to my parents because my father's birthday coming up, and I'm seeing my friends on Saturday. So for varying reasons, I'm not playing any challenges this weekend. And next week, Kaldheim will be up on Modo, I believe on Thursday, which will be the 28th of January. And I don't think there's many cards that will be good in Modern or any other like non-rotating format for that matter. But I think the ones that will be good or have chance to be good are worth talking about. So let's just jump into it. Think these are like my three cards that people are kind of excited about, and I think they are good in with certain conditions. Um, so I can see the appeal of Valky, God of Lies. The other side is a Tybalt Planeswalker for 7 mana that we won't go into because I don't think it's really that important. I don't think playing this card with like a Cascade trick or whatever, or linking it with. Uh, I don't remember the name of the card, but there's a card from Rivals to Exile and something with a wind in the name that allows you to exile this and play the other side for free. But I'm not interested in these tricks. I'm interested in Valky God of Lies as a like on its face value as a discard disruption creature. Uh, what's cool about Valky is that you can exile Uro and then on turn 3 you can pay 3 mana and let Valky be the copy of Uro, and you can just attack with Uro on turn 3, which seems kind of powerful. So it might be a good card to fight against Uro decks. But Uro decks also don't have that much creatures, like in general. Uh, so only being able to discard like four hits in their deck is not that great. I guess against Amnav you have Uros and Amnavs. Yeah, I guess we'll see. Doomskar is the new Wrath of God effect with Foretell. So the Foretell mechanic is during your turn you may pay 2 generic mana and exile this card from your hand face down, and then on later turn you can cast it for its Foretell cost. So you can't cast it on your turn. You can cast it on your opponent's turn. Like you can't cast it on your turn after you foretell it, but you can cast it on the very next turn that your opponent has. So I think the cards that will be good with foretell are mostly the cards that are good on rate for its like natural cost, which in this spot is 3 and 2 white, which isn't obviously super great, but it's playable. And then its foretell cost is their CMC -2. So you are basically not paying extra for foretell. You just have an option to pay your cost in span of 2 turns, which is very important, I think, in Behold the Multiverse, which is I think the best card from the set for Eternal formats, and I'm gonna talk about it more later on. So about Doomskar, I think it's not better than Supreme Verdict. I think being able to pitch Supreme Verdict for Force of Negation is a big deal in the matchups where it's not a very good card. So this versatility is, I think, something really important. Versatility, I guess, is very important. But I think Doomskar might be a good sideboard card against like zoo decks that kill you on turn 3.5, something like this. And Verdict is sometimes too slow for them, or against humans, for example. The one thing against humans matchup that might be tough is that if you foretell Doomskar and you don't have any other foretell cards in your deck, and they know about it, they can just Meddling Mage the Doomscar, which seems kind of annoying, but I guess we'll see. And yeah, the last card from like a generic pile of cards that people are excited about is In Search for Greatness. It's green for an enchantment, and at the beginning of your upkeep you may cast a permanent spell from your hand with converted mana cost equal to 1 plus the highest converted mana cost among other permanents you control without paying its mana cost. If you don't, you can scry 1. So what does it mean? It means that you play it on turn 2, and on turn 3 you can play a free drop in your upkeep. Where this card could be good. It might be good in Heliod, some people say that, because then you can play Disenchantment on turn 2, and then on turn 3 you can play Heliod in your upkeep, and then Spike Feeder on your turn, and just go off. I'm kind of skeptical about that, but many different mana engines were busted throughout the years, so I wouldn't sleep on this one, but I wouldn't be too excited about it. I guess we'll see. Okay, the next bunch of cards is the cards that I guess aren't for Modern, but if some of you are interested in Pioneer, I think Blue-White control might be very good in Pioneer. I think all these cards are super good in Blue-White. The biggest problems of Blue-White, in my opinion, and I've played a fair amount of this deck in Pioneer at the beginning of the format, was that you didn't have a removal from Mana Dork for 1 mana that was playable, and Bind the Monsters is exactly this. It's a playable 1 mana removal spell for their Llanowar Elves. It can also block their Scrap Heap Scroungers against Mono Black or any other recurring creatures. Also, the pathway is a big deal, because even if you had like Isolate or any other 1 mana removal spell, it was very hard to play it on turn 1 because you don't have many untapped sources on turn 1 in either blue or white. And now you have both a blue removal spell and you have more islands than plains. And you have a pathway, which is an untapped source for the first turn. Which I think these two are a very big addition to the deck. Also saw it coming. I think it's good because specifically of the Fairy Hero of the Minaria. I think in the formats where you can afford to play 40 fairies in your deck, you should be playing this instead of like Neutralize or other counter spells, because just foretelling this early on, like on turn 4 you can foretell and play a spell, and then on turn 5 you can Teferi, untap 2 lands and then counter with foretell. I think it's very strong, and I think in decks with Teferi's Hero of the Minaria you will see a lot of Solid Comings and a lot of Behold the Multiverse. Yeah, moving forward, that was just a quick remark about Pioneer, that I might pick the format up a bit more if Blue-White ends up being a good deck, because I've liked it so far. These are like the speculative cards that I think might be playable. So Glimpse the Cosmos is mostly for Pioneer, and this is the last card that I think I will talk about regarding Pioneer for the most part. The obvious synergy is that it's good with Uro, so what the card does is it's basically a Sorcery Speed Anticipate, so for 2 mana, 1 and a blue, a sorcery, you can look at the top 3 cards of your library, you can put one of them into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. And then, as long as you control a giant, you may cast it from your graveyard for 1 blue. So it's basically flashback for blue if you control a giant. So it's obviously good with Uro. And what you can do is you can glimpse, then you can Uro, and then when you escape Uro, you can glimpse with the 1 mana you put off of your escaped Uro on turn 4, which seems very strong. But I think it's a bit too clunky / cute for Modern. And I think I haven't really studied Pioneer so much in the last few months, but it might be on the power level of Pioneer, but I'm not sure, but we'll see, I guess. Ravenform is a card that might be good if you want to play a mono blue deck of some sorts. So Ravenform is a 2 and a blue sorcery that exiles target artifact or creature. Its controller creates a 1/1 blue bird token creature with flying, and the foretell is 1 blue. Might be good in mono blue. It might be good in like blue black, maybe, because you don't have good artifact removal spells for this pair of colors. And the drawback of them having a bird isn't that big, and exiling like an Uro is actually quite a big of a deal. So I think this card might be okay. It's not very like universally powerful, but I think it might fill some spots that are like blind spots of certain decks. Nico Ares is the last card I wanted to talk about in this group, which is a Planeswalker for X blue white. It enters with 3 loyalty counters, and when it enters the battlefield, you create X shard tokens. And shards are enchantments with 2, sacrifice an enchantment, scry 1, then draw a card. So they are basically a better clue that are not artifacts but enchantments. So I think it's a nice option for Stoneblade in particular as a sideboard card. It +1 is up to 1 target creature you control can't be blocked this turn. Whenever that creature deals damage this turn, return it to its owner's hand. So it allows your Sword of Peace and Famine creature to connect. It works well with your Icewind Cattle because you can just reset it after you attack. And this is the part in which I think it's specifically good in Stoneblade, because if your deck can't really use its +1, I don't think it's that great. And I think Stoneblade utilize it pretty good. The first -1 is Nico Ares deals 2 damage to target tapped creature for each card you've drawn this turn. So if you play it on turn 3, you can -1 to deal 2 damage to their tapped creature, which is nice against like Prowess. If they attack you with Bomat or with Soulscar or with whatever, you can on 3 you can Nico Ares and -, which makes it a bit better card than Teferi Time Raveler when it comes to being a good card against aggressive decks. Also, if you manage to cantrip a turn before on the same turn before you use -1, it deals 4 damage obviously, so it can scale up pretty nicely. And then the -1 number 2 is create shard token, so it's basically a card advantage engine. I don't think this is a main deckable card for the most part. It's a bit too weak, but it might be a fine sideboard card. That's my first impression. Obviously, I might be wrong, as with all of these. And some cards that I underestimate might be very good, and some cards I overestimate might end up being trash. So, okay, moving on to the last group of cards that I want to talk about, and the group of cards I have the highest hopes for are these two. Well, is this group of cards, which is Snow Duel Lands and Behold the Multiverse that I've talked about earlier. So Snow Duels are here only for Icewind Cattle decks. I think if you're playing Icewind Cattle, you should, well, maybe not you should, but I think it's worth to play 1 or 2 Snow Duels. So on turn 1, if you don't have a play, you can fetch a Snow Duel, and then you can go island basic, and you have Cattle with Death Touch on turn 3. You can't have too many tapped duels in general because they are not very good in multiples, so it's probably tough to have more than 1 or 2, especially with a Triumph in your deck. But yeah, once again, we'll see on that. Maybe Cattle will get a bit more popularity with these in the mix. Oh yeah. And the last card that I wanted to talk about is Behold the Multiverse. I think this is the best card from the set for like Modern and Pioneer probably as well. So what it does is scry 2, then draw 2 cards. So like Glimmer of Genius, you're not getting energy, but energy is for the most part irrelevant in these formats. And then it has Foretell for one generic and blue. So I think that the biggest selling point of this card is obviously the mana flexibility, because Glimmer is somewhat of a strong card on rate already, and if you can separate this cost on like between 2 turns, you can go something like on turn 3 you can Thoughtseize. You see they don't have anything you want to counter this turn, so you can foretell your Behold the Multiverse. On the next turn you can Remand or Mana Leak or whatever, plus Behold the Multiverse for 2 mana. I think it will be pretty good. It might be even better in like flash decks. When you have a lot of remands, a lot of mana leaks on turn 4, you can foretell it. Then if they have something you want to remand, you remand. If they don't, you just cast Behold the Multiverse. Yep, in general, I think this card might be good. And it might somewhat revive one of my favorite archetypes that I've played in the span of the last year, which is Blue-Black Lurrus. And this is the first deck list that I've come up with, like, today, basically. I've been thinking about this deck for a while. I think Behold the Multiverse is a good addition to it. Glimmer of Genius is obviously a proxy for Behold the Multiverse here. So the main idea is that you're using a lot of discard spells, in this case 7. Maybe you can go up to 8, but I basically cutting the 4th Kozilek or Inquisition of Kozilek was my final cut. I don't know what else you can cut. You can probably cut like one Unearth, but I like having these one-offs with doubles and with cantrips and chases and everything. So the idea is just like red-black midrange, you poke a hole in their game plan and then you land your permanent, which should take over the game, which is mostly Jace, Rain's Prodigy. There are also 2 Packrats, and even though Packrat is kind of bad against like Ren and 6 and is not the strongest card on raid, I think having another way to utilize your discard spells in the late game might come in handy. And I think Packrat is the next best thing in these colors after Jace. You can splash for Magmatic Channeler, but I don't like splashing in this deck because Lurrus is so black mana intensive, and you also have like Archmage's Charm and Cryptic Command. This is obviously the first draft, so it still requires some tuning. Some other cards that come to mind when building this deck are different turn 2 counter spells, like maybe more Mana Leaks, maybe more drums, probably more drums with Thoughtscour, but my beef with Thoughtscour is just it's not a very good card on raid in general. Milling 2 has some cute synergies, but with like 10 fetch lands, bubbles, a lot of discard spells, you can flip Jace on turn 3 for fairly reasonably without having Thoughtscour. And also, like, Thoughtscouring them in a format with Uro isn't that great. And Uro is another reason for only 1 copy of Drown in the log. If they ever ban Uro, or when they ban Uro rather in Modern, I think you can make some changes to this archetype. You can cut like 1 Clink at least. You can put more drums. Maybe you can play Thoughtscours, but that's a discussion for a different day. Also, Eliminate might find a place in this deck, because the way you resolve Teferi Time Raveler is problematic. Obviously, you have 3 forces, you have some counter spells, you have 7 discard spells. So it's not that you can't answer it, but yep, if they manage to resolve it, it's probably a bit annoying for you to deal with. Also, Ravenform might be okay. Card has like a sideboard removal spell that deals with like artifacts or with big creatures, but being a sorcerer speed against, for example, like Hammer Time is pretty bad, so I wouldn't hold my breath on it. But yeah, this is the first draft of the deck, and yeah, I'm gonna play it right after Kaldheim is up live, because the only cards I need are 3 Beholds the Multiverses, and usually the cards on the first day are quite overpriced, but like how overpriced can a common be? Like, okay, I will pay like half a ticket for them and it will be okay. But yeah, this is all for me this week, I guess. Not a lot of musings about, or non-musings at all about the metagame, because I think it's in the fairly similar spot as it was last week. There was a PTQ on Monday, and we had 4 Uro decks in the top 8. So yeah, like, if you want to win in Modern, I think you still should play Uro. I'm gonna play this deck because I love it. This was one of my favorite archetypes. It was a legitimately good deck in my opinion when Lurrus was unnerfed, or where companion when companion were unnerfed as a mechanic. But now it's probably a bit too weak. It's still okay for like league plays. I might play the challenge with it or something, but unless it comes up that it's very good in testing, which I doubt, I probably wouldn't advise playing anything bigger than a challenge with it. But yeah, if you want to just have fun and stuff, then I think this deck should work just well for you. Yep. Once again, this is all for me. I'm gonna see you on Monday for some more Modern. I don't know what I'm gonna play yet. Probably some Jay's Rinse Prodigy deck with Thoughtseize, maybe a bug version with Uro before Kaldheim releases and before Lurrus has enough like card advantage to compete. But yeah, once again, for the third time, that's all for me today. And I'm gonna see you. Take care and bye bye.